Let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Clark Washington, who writes, so, Terminator suffered a dark fate. There you go, little play on words. This weekend at the box office, opening near identical to the 3-day take of Terminator Genisys and scoring the same B+ cinema score to boot. To make matters worse, Deadline says the movie needs $470 million just to break even. Yeah, that might even be low, to be honest with you. At this point, is it time for Hollywood to say hasta la vista, baby, to the Terminator franchise? And dude, you're not wrong. This is one of those situations where you can be number one, and Terminator was number one at the box office this weekend, and still be a monumental disappointment. Look, word is the production budget on this thing is anywhere between $180 and $190 million. That is a huge risk on a franchise that has struggled for decades coming off of Terminator Genisys. And Rob, I have said on this show for a while, this new Terminator movie might be good, it might be bad, but even if it's great, this movie's going to struggle at the box office. And they have to know it's going to struggle at the box office because we've had decades of bad Terminator movies, and Genisys was just recently, and a lot of people have given up on it. Now, I saw Terminator Dark Fate, and I actually didn't mind it. It's not great. It's the best Terminator film since Terminator 2, which again isn't saying much, but it was a decent little film. I enjoyed it for the most part. But yeah, it has struggled mightily. Here's the top 5 at the box office this week. Terminator Dark Fate ended up making $29 million, which, hey, there are some movies that will pop in bottles of champagne if they could make $30 million opening weekend. Not a movie that cost $180 to $190 million to produce. Not good at all. Anyway, Joker came in at $13.9 million. Maleficent, Mistress of Evil came in at $12.1. It's hanging in there, actually. Harriet made $12. I wanted to go see Harriet this weekend, and something came up, and I couldn't go see it.
Good on Harriet. That's that movie.
Great.
That's great box
I might actually
office.
try to go see that tonight because I've heard decent thing. And The Addams Family, which, by the way, I thought looked stupid, and I thought was a stupid idea to make that movie. And I still haven't seen it because I had no interest in it. But it keeps chugging along. Makes another $8.5 million. But we come back, though, Rob, here. This whole thing about Terminator Dark Fate, there's no other way to put it. This is a disaster.
Yeah.
This is a disaster for them. There are sites right now that are forecasting with this opening, this movie is going to equal in losses anywhere between $100 to $130 million in losses. $100 to $130 million in losses when it's all said and done. This is on the back of a Paramount studio that has been struggling as it is. Now, Paramount co-financed this film. They had like Skydance and some other players involved as well. So their losses are going to be mitigated, but it's still in the millions and millions and millions more dollars that they're losing out on. They can't get another Bumblebee and another...
And following on the heels of Gemini Man.
And following on the heels of another monumental flop for them. They cannot get Top Gun 2 and another Bumblebee movie here fast enough for them. They need something badly. But let's focus on Terminator here for a second. It kind of happened the exact way I thought it would happen. It's not a bad movie. Not as good as I was hoping it would be. Not a bad little film, but it doesn't matter that it wasn't a bad little film. And as a matter of fact, it's being received well by just about everybody. When you go over and look at it on Rotten Tomatoes right now, 70% of the critics like it. 85% of the audience like. Remember, Rotten Tomatoes now has verified scores, which means these are actually people who saw the movie. They have almost 5,000 people registering votes. People are generally liking it. It's a good little movie, not bad, but not enough. Not enough. And it did. Look, I thought it was going to struggle. This is even more than I thought it was going to struggle. Let's be honest here. Rob, you look at this sort of a result, and what are you making out of this? What's the ramifications of this?
Look, here's my problem. I'm always about authorship. And when I see especially a genre movie, I want to know that I'm being told a story that has authors behind it, that has an author, that I'm getting some vision that somebody had to bring to the screen. This movie has like 6 writers. You know, it has a writing group. Tim Miller loved the franchise. I understand why he took the job directing this movie. But I feel that this movie had nothing new to say. And I think people felt that. It's a well-made movie.
Yeah, and you're saying that as somebody who didn't mind the movie.
No, it's a serviceable movie. It's got fun scenes in it, but when you're watching it, you're like, what have I been told that's new in this film? And I keep going back.
That isn't just a slight variation on what we've been told before.
I mean, I've often,
without giving any spoilers away.
No, exactly. And I've often talked about how Creed, what Ryan Coogler did with Creed for the Rocky franchise, he gave us new characters. And this movie, in a way, is very similar to Creed, what it was doing, but Creed had more heart, and you basically had one writer-director coming up with a story and implementing it. And the fight scenes in Creed were really interesting, and I look at a movie like this, and it had these 6 writers, and it's like, I felt like I was watching, once again, and people have compared this movie to Force Awakens as like a cover band version of The Terminator, even though you have Linda Hamilton and you have Schwarzenegger coming back. There's nothing new, like we talked about earlier. Terminator and Terminator 2 said all that needs to be said. There's literally been nothing new. The Sarah Connor Chronicles did some interesting things on TV, but there's nothing new in this film franchise. It's just been doing variations on a theme. And like you were saying, how dumb is Skynet? Why not send back 100 Terminators or go back to the dawn of man and kill Cro-Magnon man? Make it easy on yourself. Why do you keep doing the same thing that doesn't work?
Well, I guess they got to make sure that it still gets created, so you can't go too far back and wipe out the human race. I guess that's
it's true.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, so they have. Okay, that makes sense. But still,
logic in our science fiction.
It just feels like there's no new story to tell, and intellectually, I think movie-going audiences, they want to see something different, because you know what, John, you already know what's going to happen in this movie before you've even seen it. You're like, it's a Terminator movie, and sure, they have planes. They've got a great plane set piece that turns into a car set piece or whatever, but a truck set piece. It doesn't do anything new. And you watch this movie and you feel strangely empty when it's over, because it's like, well, okay, I guess that's what Terminators are. It's, when you ride your favorite roller coaster over and over and over again, it's strangely familiar, but there's nothing new under the sun here.
And look, and I think the bottom line here is this. It just kind of states what a lot of people already knew. People were over Terminator. I mean, I think that message was sent pretty loud and clear with Genesis. People were over Terminator. They tried it again, but this time James Cameron's back as a producer. It would have been far more intriguing if James Cameron was back as the director, but he's busy making his 17, Avatar sequels that are never going to come out. So, and they will at some point. And okay, Arnold's back. Arnold was back before. Linda Hamilton's back. Okay, that was great. That's great. You got my attention. But the reality is, it was too little, too late. Maybe if you had made this movie instead of Genesis, like if Genesis had never come out, and we went right from Terminator Salvation, and we've had nothing since, and then came Terminator Dark Fate, I think maybe it would have had more interest. But I think it's just a franchise that everybody was already over. And again, it's not a bad little movie.
No.
It's not a bad little movie, but it is just Terminator all again with some different terminology.
Yeah, and like, why watch this when you have to be better than Terminator 2? I
don't know that you got to be better than Terminator 2.
It's a really hard thing to do, but if you're
it's next to impossible. That's one of the greatest sci-fi films of all time.
But if you can't do that, or at least aspire to do that, why are you showing us mediocre Terminator? If we've already had Terminator 1 and Terminator 2, and Terminator 1 is one of the greatest, call it a B movie, but low budget science fiction movies ever made in terms of its execution, so good. And if you're going to go back and you're going to spend $185 million, I mean, I think Terminator 1 cost $6. I know it was the 80s, but unless you can come and blow me away, why do it? That's why, I get excited for The Matrix. I think The Matrix 4, they've got stuff that we haven't seen before, so I'm like, oh, okay. Where are they going to take this franchise? But with Terminator Dark Fate, you watch a trailer and you're like, they're giving us everything that we've seen since 1984, just played differently.
I would suggest this. If the Terminator films that had come out had been at least as good as Terminator Dark Fate, or a little bit better, we would be seeing a very different result right now, because I don't think we'd see a franchise that everybody was over, because we've just had decades of crappy stuff over and over. See, I don't think you make the next gangster movie. It doesn't need to be as good as The Godfather to be a good, fun, enjoyable movie. I don't need every Marvel MCU movie to be as good as Captain America: The Winter Soldier to be a good, if I know that when I go to see one of your movies, I'm pretty much guaranteed I'm going to have a good time. Doesn't have to be as good as the last time, but as long as you give me a good time. And I think people who have been wanting to see Terminator Genesis, or Terminator Dark Fate, I think we have given up on the idea that if I go to a Terminator movie, I'm going to have a good time. We don't believe that anymore.
Right.
Nobody believes that. And so even when they do make one that could be modestly enjoyable, it might be too little too late. But listen, guys, I made that the feature of today's question of the day. And my question of the day to you guys was simply this. Look, with Terminator doing well, and here's what I asked you guys. Despite being the best Terminator film in decades, which, let's face it, isn't saying much, Dark Fate has flopped hard. Is it time to put the Terminator franchise to bed? Right now, I put this up just before the show started. 2,200 of you guys have registered votes already, and overwhelmingly, 84% of you are saying yes. The Terminator's great. You've done the Terminator story, put it to bed. There are still I'll be honest with you, I think this percentage is a little bit higher than I thought it would be. 16% of you guys are still saying, no, it's not done yet. Take another crack at it. Maybe build on whatever modest quality success Dark Fate has. I don't know. You're saying go ahead and do it again. I got to tell you guys what, though. I tend to side with Robert on this. I think the story of Terminator has been done. And it's been done again, and it's been done again. If you put this thing to bed, maybe reboot it in 10 years and try Terminator 1 all over again. Maybe. But I think it's time to put this franchise to bed. The question here is, guys, what do you think about all that? Why do you think this film has struggled so much? Do you think it's just time to put this thing to bed? Do you think, no, take another kick at it now that James Cameron's back's in the fold? I don't know. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right.